You a breakdown on the CARES money, and I promised you that Dave Hardy would join us, and Dave's going to come in on Zoom. He's going to talk. I'll back it up behind it, but I have told you over and over and over, what's going on, and I think Brother Hardy will take over from here, and I hope you'll completely believe after Dave Hardy goes through exactly what I've been through with you over and over.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Governor. As you pointed out, way back a long time ago, this was late March, early April, we, of course, received by wire transfer $1.25 billion in CARES relief funds or coronavirus relief funds with a set of guidelines that followed thereafter. So that was our starting point. And our closing point, as was pointed out when the law was passed, and that is our closing point, is December 30th of this year. Under the current law, we are supposed to have expended all of our CARES funds by December 30th, or in the alternative, we can hold back a small amount for expenses that were incurred prior to December 30th. So December 30th is the red letter day, and I cannot explain to the public and to the people of West Virginia how much we appreciate your leadership during the last 10 months as we tried to navigate our way through this process and be sure that we maximize the recovery for the people of West Virginia. This was what I call not budget checkers, but budget chess, and that we had to be very careful in how we handled the funds. We met with you, Governor, along with our other revenue team members and members of the governor's office on average 3 times a week since early April. So this is all culminating today with what I will call our final plan for how to expend our $1.25 billion. And again, this is a process that's gone on a long time, and it wasn't done lightly. We used, of course, an outside law firm of Bailey Glasser when we had legal issues, and we used, at the governor's suggestion, an outside accounting firm, and the name of the firm is BDO, and they have validated and reviewed every one of our proposed expenditures. Then those expenditures are ultimately sent to the auditor's office for a final review. So there's been a lot of checks and balances, and the governor insisted on that before we started this process. So that being said, let me explain where we are today with our expenses for the CARES Fund. We have a $30 million commitment, and that the lion's share of that has been spent. Almost all of that has already been spent for our small business grant program, and that was done through the small business grant portal. And I might add, all the businesses were asked to go through a vetting process to be sure that they were properly registered with the state of West Virginia and were current on their taxes before they could avail themselves of the grant program. And that program has resulted in a $30 million expenditure. The next expenditure is a $50 million medical access highways program. In consultation with Bird White and Chief Engineer Jimmy Riston at the Department of Highways, they went out and identified a specific set of highways that would impede access to medical treatment in West Virginia. And this was done carefully. It was documented. The highways were photographed. And then we sought a legal opinion from our outside law firm on whether that would be a permissible use of CARES money. We've done our due diligence. We've done our work. And we expect all those dollars to be expended on this medical access highway program in the next 2 weeks. And of course, that's a $50 million commitment to improvement of our highways for medical access in our state. The next program is the broadband program. There was a lot of issues about telelearning and telework, and we tried to identify in a very quick way where we could find some dollars and some immediate improvements to broadband throughout West Virginia to allow better access to telemedicine and to allow better access to education, online education for our secondary schools, as well as our higher education institutions. and that program has expended $32.3 million. Our next program was very challenging, and we started off thinking that we would need about $200 million, roughly $20 million a month, to provide relief for our cities and our counties. And we established a portal, and in consultation with the West Virginia Municipal League, the West Virginia Association of Counties, the West Virginia County Commissioners Association, we consulted with those groups, and a portal was built on the governor's website where the cities and counties could submit monthly their application for reimbursement of eligible expenses under the CARES Act. The program has been remarkably successful. And right now, the expenditure number is about $253 million, way beyond what we originally anticipated of $200 million. And we anticipate that we need another $12 million to get to the end of the year. So that program has directly reimbursed our cities and counties by the end of the year in about 12 days, a total of $265 million to help them pay for essential services to assist with the getting through the pandemic. The next number is the Fairmont Hospital. The decision was made upon the closure of the Fairmont Hospital in partnership with WVU that there was a need for more medical access in a community hospital in Fairmont. And in partnership with WVU, we were able to allocate $10 million to make that project a reality. The next expenditure is our public service districts. Due to the pandemic, a number of utility ratepayers have not been able to afford their monthly utility bills. And the public service districts asked for some assistance in consultation with the Public Service Commission, Chairman Charlotte Lane. And we were able to come up with a program that is CARES Act eligible, where we can reimburse the public service districts directly for many of the unpaid utility bills. These payments do not go directly to the consumer. They go to the public service districts to allow them to avoid millions of dollars of delinquent utility bills. And that program has expended $16.5 million. The next program has been one I think we're all very aware of, and that our National Guard has done just tremendous work from day one on testing, sanitation, getting out supplies, and every other aspect day to day of fighting the pandemic. And the governor's office has had the ability through the contingency fund to pay the National Guard immediately when they had those immediate needs. Many times we had to get equipment and PPE basically on 24 hours notice. And we have set up a reimbursement to the National Guard and other expenses directly related to fighting the pandemic of $40 million. The next expenditure is what we call here at the Department of Revenue, here at the Capitol, the deep dive. And what this simply means is this: from March 1 to December 30th, we are allowed to go back and review state expenses that are within the guidelines for reimbursement under the CARES Act. And some of the expenses are things like the Department of Corrections having additional expenses to keep the jails sanitized, additional overtime for our public safety officials, and so on and so forth. I could go on for hours, but what we've done, we've gone back, we've reviewed those expenses, and then we have been able to submit those for reimbursement under the CARES Act through our accounting firm. So our accounting firm has allowed us to approve those expenses and then given us the authority, if we want to, and they've approved them as CARES Act eligible, to reimburse the state of West Virginia. We did our first reimbursement in June. In June, we had $65 million of expenses at that time. We paid ourselves $57 million, and we used that to balance the budget so we could close the books for fiscal year 20 on June 30th. We have continued this program, and it's been a lot of hard work. Our DHHR folks, our corrections folks, our state police have all worked very hard on this project, and we've been able to book a total of $240 million of CARES Act eligible expenses. We've so far paid ourselves $57 million, but we are now able to, if we choose, to reimburse ourselves for $183 million of eligible CARES Act expenses. These are direct expenses approved by the accounting firm that we are paying the people of West Virginia back for the eligible expenses that the state itself has incurred. The big number, the one that it gives everyone sticker shock, but it's a very large number and it's a very important number, is our unemployment benefits. If you go back to March 1st, we had $160.4 million in our unemployment trust fund immediately before the pandemic started. That was on March 1st. Since that time, we have expended a total of $502.2 million in unemployment benefits. And I want to say that number again. Since March 1st through December the 15th, we have spent $502.2 million in unemployment benefits. That number was an opening balance of $160 million. We had a FEMA program that was a match program that the government provided, the federal government, of $38 million. And we had employer premiums that went into the trust fund of $173 million. And last but not least, starting July 1st, we were able to draw down, if we chose, and we did, an interest-free loan from the federal government to keep the fund solvent. So we've been paying a lot of our unemployment benefits with this interest-free loan since early July. And the current balance of the interest-free loan is projected by the end of the year to be $130 million. We have held back CARES money to pay back that loan if we need to do so. If we don't pay the loan back by December 31st, the federal government will charge us a 2.4% interest rate. So the plan now, of course, is to pay back the loan and reimburse the unemployment trust fund. And the governor has directed us to allocate a total of $445 million for unemployment benefits. That will allow us to retire the loan of $130 million and open calendar year 21, with a balance of $315 million in the trust fund. That is very important because we are projecting that we will still have a very large amount of unemployment benefits for January, February, and March in calendar year 21. So the governor has told us to do what it takes to try to keep the fund solvent and on target, and that's assuming no more federal money or no more federal loans. So we are proposing paying off the $130 million loan and a $315 million balance, opening balance in the unemployment trust fund, for a total of $445.7 million. The last number is the PPE and testing number. Now, there was a lot of testing done all summer, and there was a question at some point where everyone said, well, who's paying for the testing? So the governor asked us in the Department of Revenue to research who is paying for all this testing. And we thought we knew, but we needed to go back and look. PEIA has paid for a very large amount of testing. The Medicaid program has paid for testing, and private insurers have paid for testing. But about 75 to 80% of the testing that's being done in the state today is being paid for by DHHR, which is a West Virginia agency, of course. As we stand today, DHHR is projected to spend $74 million on testing to close out the year. So we have allocated that amount for testing to reimburse DHHR and to pay many of the vendors that we have invoices from DHHR. Again, the testing goes on. Right now, we're testing, those projections show that we're projecting to test about 12,000 people a day. So the testing is, of course, not inexpensive. If you total all that up, you come out to $1,203.5 million, which gave us an initial cushion number of about $46.5 million. However, we have also approved a few small things. One, of course, is the extracurricular fund that the governor mentioned a few minutes ago to provide relief to the extracurricular activity funds across the state. That's about a $2 million expenditure. And then there are some miscellaneous expenditures that total out, probably 6-7 more million. So as we sit today, and these numbers do change quickly, our unencumbered number, our cushion, we call it, is about $39 million. So we have met the mission. The mission was to, as outlined by the governor, hold on to the dollars, commit what we have to commit, be sure that we keep up with the guidelines, and be sure that before we make any final decisions, there hasn't been additional money allocated or additional changes to the law or the guidelines. We've done all the above in consultation with the governor. And our plan, of course, is if the law does not change, is to expend almost all but $40 million of these funds by December 30th, as required by the law. The $40 million, of course, is a cushion, and I think we will have probably other sources for that as we get near the end. This is a miracle as far as I'm concerned. This was very difficult. We many times we told the governor, we don't have enough money, we can't pull this off. And he said, let me take you through this over and over. And we met with him over and over, and we researched and we worked hard. And we followed his lead all the way through. And I feel like today it's a miracle for West Virginia because we started off with a very difficult place. We had a pandemic. We had no idea what to allocate for these expenses. And we certainly didn't know how the disease was going to progress from March till December. But we're there, and we feel very confident in our plan and very confident in the governor's leadership with the plan. So that's all I have, Governor, unless you have anything else that you want to add.
No, Dave, I don't. I really appreciate you and all your staff, the Mark and Mike and Ann and just all the different people that have contributed in every way. Ann's in our office, I know, but she's contributed phenomenally. But the work you've done, I mean, kudos and kudos and kudos. Way to go! It's really, really great work, and so I hope that explains everything. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just touch real quickly one more time. I'm going to go through just really, really quick, but to say that, we had a bucket on our small businesses. We didn't have, near as many small businesses that applied. We ended up 30 million out on that, 50 million out on the medical access highways, 32 million and change out on broadband. The cities and the counties and the local government, that continued to expand up and up and up. We started 200 and 215, 225, 250, and now we're going to come across the finish line there at 265. It's going out to our counties and our cities. That's great. That's great because we've been able to juggle and hold back enough dollars to be able to continue to fund all the way to the very last day and everything. So that's great. That really helps all of our counties and cities a bundle. Fairmont Hospital, we got 10 million that's gone there. WVU's done great work there, and that's an incredible asset for that community. From the standpoint of our public service things that we've done for people that were struggling, paying their power bills and their sewage bills and whatever. We were able to do that. That's $16.5 million. From the governor's contingency thing, we just continue to put money there and expend it as the National Guard calls upon us and everything, and that's just money in and money out that's going to our National Guard primarily. You know, from the standpoint of the reimbursement to ourselves for expenses, you know, this is going to be a big number, and it will actually impact our surplus of the year, you know, from a standpoint of cash surpluses and additional surpluses, and that is a big number to keep our state really, really super healthy. From a standpoint of workforce, we've been through it a bunch of, we've been through this so many times, you know, it's almost, you know, just branded on my hand. But nevertheless, you know, what we've done here is basically one thing. We have insured our businesses against absolute increases, you know, from the standpoint of their unemployment, and it could have increased off the chart. We've covered that, and we've covered it really well. From the standpoint of our testing and our PPE, you know, we've run across the finish line with that. It cost us $74 million. It cost major big money. We were able under workforce to give our hardworking people that were laid off that extra $100 a week. It cost us $38 million, but we were able to do it and pull it all, you know, together. And you know, Dave mentioned, you know, some smaller odds and ends. We've been holding these back and just trying to decide if we had enough money. And I could go through just real quick. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm just going to go through a couple. We are going to give our 4 largest convention centers across our state that $500,000 that they have requested. That's going to Beckley, Charleston, Huntington, and Wheeling. You'll be hearing about that real soon, you know, but we are also going to do a project that will absolutely, you know, it will help us from the standpoint of all of our 911 network and everything, and it's ready to go. It's in Hancock County, you know, a county that desperately needs this. That's $2.73 million. We can only do right now, there's to be able to get additional disabled individuals off the wait list so they can stay at home. You know, there's an independent living council. You know, they've requested $1.45 million, $1,450,000. We can only do $350,000 at this time because under the guidelines, that's all that you can expense at this time. But we're hopeful that if we get an extension, we'll be able to cover the entire $1,450,000. And from the last thing, you know, just on the smaller things, CAMC has requested to us over and over, you know, from the standpoint of through different senators, you know, Senator DeB Nelson and Senator Katubo, you know, we've talked a lot about this. They've requested a mobile unit that can travel, especially down into southern West Virginia, where people, you know, don't have access and all this, and you know, it can do lots and lots of testing from the standpoint of COVID and all that, granted, but it can do things in years to come, you know, blood testing and a lot of different things, just to make us better and make us more well. We're going to do that. That's $800,000, and so all that's great stuff, and we've still got a little cushion that we're still watching and we're still holding back, and the reason for that is just one thing and one thing just alone, and that's just this. All eyes are on the stimulus package that's going on in D.C. You can't imagine how much we're watching just that. It's not been passed yet, and we really don't know exactly what's in it. But when it passes, what if, just what if there weren't money there to do real testing in the first quarter of the year, in January, February, March maybe? What if there were things that we needed to really be sure that we could cover? What if there is an extension that we've absolutely been assured wholeheartedly that they're going to extend that December 30th date? Really, we've been told they're going to extend it for a year. But with all that being said, to have that little cushion, smart money, just smart money. You know, again, Mr. Secretary and all your staff and all those that have watched this and really worked their tail off and over, I thank you. It's a job well done, to say the very least. So way to go, you know, and Brad, I hope that answers all your questions. I know there's got to be something that somebody's going to ask along the way, but I hope that clarifies everything. And at the end of the day, you know, I've told you over and over, if we had this, I'm a business guy, and we were going to run across the finish line with exactly the way we should. And so it's good stuff. Great days in West Virginia, but great days when we've had lots and lots and lots of tough ones. So that's all I got right now.
All right, thank you, Governor. Let's now